All right, I want you to ask yourself right now, okay? Because we're going into this holiday season. It doesn't matter where you are in this world, there's some form of a holiday coming about, right? For any time of the year and any day, honestly. But I want you to ask yourself this question. Why am I making a commitment that I know I really don't want to do, or that I'm going to try everything I can do to get out of, right? You got to ask yourself this question, because here's the thing. You're going to create this level of torture within yourself, this level of suffering that you're going to give yourself. And what's going to happen is you're going to say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to say I'm going to come, right? And sometimes this is why yes should never be your default. It should be, let me think about it. I'll let you know, give them a time when you're going to let them know, or no, but not yes. Because what happens is as you're going on this commitment and you're like, well, I don't want to make somebody mad, or I don't want somebody to be upset with me. Meanwhile, you're not even close to having a good time once you get there, right? You're not even having a good time. Like, that's not even what you want to do, right? And so what's happening is when you're in that space and you're making this commitment, and even if you show up, you're going to be sitting there like this. Oh my God, I want to get out of this so bad. And then you're just sitting there out of obligation. Now, this obviously pertains to personal. There's going to be so many things in this world, professionally and like businessy, that we have to do that we're just not going to want to do. I mean, that's just life 101. It can't always be about the things that you want to do. But personally, you do have the power to make your own decisions on what you do and don't do. Because here's the thing. We know that boundaries are not boundaries until they carry a consequence, right? So if you're like, I really wish that they just wouldn't ask me. Okay, well, really wish that I picked the right lottery numbers last night. I mean, we can play that game all day long. If in fact you're too worried about someone's guilt trip, well, that's where you have to start saying, listen, you have to call it straight out. You have to say, listen, I don't allow myself to be guilt tripped. And if it continues, we're going to have to set some distance in this relationship. Yes, set distance in the relationship. Remember, a boundary must carry a consequence. A boundary is never a boundary without a consequence. So you also have to say to yourself, do I want to deal with my own consequences of committing to something that I'm really either going to try so hard to get out of, or I'm just going to be miserable while I'm sitting there? You're not doing yourself any favors. And just because you're physically somewhere and you're gone, that does not mean that you're helping anybody. And it creates resentment. It builds this weird sense of expectations in return. You're like, oh God, I went there and I did that and they can't come help me. Like, you're creating so much of your own suffering on a daily basis in many different ways. I mean, that's just what we do as humans. That's human behavior, because we either want everybody to be okay, which is unrealistic, or we want everybody to think highly of us. Again, unrealistic. See, the thing is you think that in your mind, you don't have to be like an influencer. You could be anybody, anybody walking down the street. And there's going to be people who are just not going to like you. They are going to have an idea or an opinion of how it is. What you're not going to do, okay? I'm giving you permission here. Like, you need it, you don't need it, but I'm going to give you permission. What you're not going to do is you're not going to sit there and keep trying to do everything to get these people to like you, or everything to keep these people from being disappointed. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is, I'm telling you, I've seen it and I've lived it. It will breed resentment and expectations. Neither one are going to serve anybody. And if they're mad because they didn't get their way, and vice versa, so this also pertains to you, right? So if somebody says to you, no, I'm not coming, or I'm not making a commitment, then let it be. You can have your feelings hurt, that's fine. They can have their feelings hurt, that's fine too, right? Feelings aren't facts, they're real to us in the moment. And we could be sad because we wanted something to be different, and it isn't, right? But you can't control them. You can't control another person's emotions. It's not your responsibility to do so anyway. It really isn't. Don't intentionally hurt somebody on purpose, right? Then that goes into a whole different conversation. But sometimes you're going to do things that's in your best interest. People aren't going to like it. People are going to get their feelings hurt. You're going to disagree. They're going to get their feelings hurt. Not your problem, not your job to walk on eggshells and like hold these people. Like, no, we're not going to do that game. All right. And it's so imperative that you keep that in mind, because you're in your headspace too much about how are these people going to feel, but how are you going to feel? You know what I mean? Like, seriously, how are you going to feel? We are so wrapped up in how they're going to feel. How are you going to feel? And that's the important factor, is you got to ask yourself, how am I going to feel through all of this? Because yeah, how you feel matters. That's right. I know other people in this world may have never told you that, may have never made you feel that way. That sucks, but it is what it is. But you can now show up for yourself. And you can do that by protecting your peace. And you can protect your peace by not overdoing and overcommitting. Because when you're constantly overcommitting, and well, that's a little different. Overcommitting is just trying to say yes to everything, which again, stop saying yes. Yes should never be your default answer. Unless you're doing fun things like pickleball or crochet. Sure, yes. You know what I mean? It's fun things. But yes should never be your commitment for the things that you haven't even had a chance to sit and process and think through. Right? Seriously. Because what's happening is very often you do that instant yes. And then you go, like, you maybe in the height of happiness, in the height of sadness or whatever, you're making this commitment, right? And then you're going home and you're going, or the next day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, what I just commit to? Why did I say yes to that? Why would I do that? Now you're saying, oh my God, how can I get out of this? Which, by the way, you could say, hey, I know yesterday I said I was going to make it. I've really thought about it and I'm actually not going to make it today. Like it's okay. It is okay for you to change your mind. Preferably try not to wait to the 11th hour, right? Especially if it's like somebody has to buy food or it's a wedding or, if you know you're not going to go and you really don't want to go, even if you commit immediately, it's okay to call the next day or the day after and say, you know what? I'm just not going to come. You don't need a million explanations why, but try not to wait till the 11th hour because then it becomes a problem, right? So I just want you to be clear in that, because it is okay to change your mind, by the way. Like, even if you do and you have all intentions on going and then the next day or two, you're like, I don't know if I'm really going to feel like going. Now, that being said, don't let that stop you from doing things that make you uncomfortable. So there's two different things here. Just because you don't feel like being uncomfortable, and I don't mean uncomfortable like, oh, because these people are there. Uncomfortable because you're dealing with your social anxiety, or uncomfortable, no. We want you to do that. So it's more when you're protecting your peace because you know that you're not good with said person who's going to be there, or your ADHD kicks in because it's so loud and so noisy and it's just not good for you. Yeah, that's cool. But at some point you still have to push through that. But don't ever do it out of guilt, out of some weird sense of obligation. That is never, ever your responsibility. Okay. And that's so important because as you go through this, and again, be okay with receiving that same thing. Be okay with, don't sit there in your mind and be like, oh, I know if I invite them, they're going to come. Stop assuming that everybody's just going to come, even if they have a history of that. No expectations. Nope. You're just going to figure it out. Just ask, and it is what it is. Okay. And so I want you to be very, very cautious in any part of the year, but especially around these holidays, because the holidays, oof. And then sometimes you're like, well, I'd rather go over there than be alone. Think really hard about that. Think really hard about that, because being alone isn't a bad thing. It really is not a bad thing. And do you get more peace? I know you want to be around other people. I got it. We're not islands. I understand. But do you get more peace from dealing with those specific people on that specific day by staying home? Or are you just going to suck it up because it just sucks and you don't want to be around these cousins, but you're going to be there anyway? Don't do that to yourself. Right? You had to do a lot of things as a child that you did not want to do. And here's the most beautiful thing on the planet is that you're an adult now. For the most part, you're an adult, right? Sometimes if you're still living at home, it can be iffy, but you're an adult. Okay. You get to make your own choices. And if they get upset, be upset, but protect your peace. And it also teaches you, right? It shows you what your value is to yourself. You get too caught up in being valuable to everybody else. You're shortchanging yourself. You are shortchanging yourself. You're not giving yourself any positivity. You're not giving yourself any feedback. So the next time, especially any time of the year, right? Anytime, 365 days a year, but especially during these holidays, during birthdays, during anything like that, if you find yourself immediately saying yes, just take a minute, pause. Even if you're on the phone, say, okay, let me think about it. I'm not really sure yet. Let me get back to you. Yes, you're allowed to say that. And even if you commit the next day or so, it's okay to be like, I'm not going to make it, right? No additional information is needed, and be okay receiving the same thing.